First of all, do you just want to sort of tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Stephen Arnold. I was a semi-professional football player, just working a 9-to-5 job in England. Um, I I moved into coaching the football team. I enjoyed that, but I got frustrated at the amount of time that I was exposed to the players and how much influence and impact I could have on them. So I did that. We were successful, and then I came to Australia. And while I was in Australia, I saw that people could make money out of the health and fitness game. And I was amazed by this. I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to have a career change and I'm going to do this. And and obviously I had visa issues. So it took me 2 years. I had to go work on the mines. And then when I got my visa, I was sat on the beach on New Year's Day and I was looking at the ocean. I was looking at the sand. And I was like, man, I've spent like 28 years of my life working in garages, working on building sites, renovating properties. I've had enough of that. I'm going to do something that makes me happy. I'm gonna give all that up, all that work, everything I've ever known. I'm gonna give that up, and I'm gonna chase this dream of being a personal trainer. So that was it. I dived into it head first. Started at fitness first. Quickly got sold out to Good Life. I was a one-on-one PT at Florida. Moved over to Subi. From Subi, moved down to the Body Consultants, and from the Body Consultants, I moved online. Through that journey, I've coached clients to 21 international titles in natural sports and fitness modeling. I've worked with Miss Galaxy Australia. I've worked with Miss Nude Australia. I've worked with numerous state and national champions in multiple federations, ICN, IFBB, WBFF, INBA. So multiple divisions, multiple athletes, multiple sports. And now we sort of shifted our attention really more towards health and fitness rather than training and nutrition. So now we're kind of working more, getting people to optimal health. So optimal health in terms of cognitive function, physical performance, confidence, energy, mood regulation. This is kind of where we're focusing our attentions to now. So we've moved to a sort of different level, and we're really enjoying working with people that really want to push their own health and energy and confidence to new heights. So that's where we're at now. And we did have 100 clients before the Corona situation came. Working with a few less people now, but life is all good, and every situation brings a new opportunity. And this is a really good time to reflect on what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, people we like to work with, how we like to work with them, and that's what we're doing at this time right now. It's sort of reflecting and reviewing and seeing how we can best move forward.
Awesome. And with your football career, so what sort of caused that to come to an end? Was it injury or something along those lines?
Yeah, a little bit. So I was 28. I was getting towards the end of my career anyway, but no, I wasn't really, because I'm still playing now, but I did get a little bit of an injury and that did hold me up. And so I feel like I was getting to the end of my career, but looking back now, it kind of was because of everything else that was happening in my life. But physically, I was still capable and I'm still actually playing
Right.
now. But 28, I got a bit of an injury and I was managing the team as well. So it's like, it's really hard to say to an 18-year-old lad, you're going to sit on the bench whilst I play with this injury. It's like, be the manager, do your role, and bring the young lads up. So it kind of, a couple of things added on. And then I went to Australia. So I got to Australia, I started training with Joondalup FC. And I was like, I'm just kind of living exactly the same as I did in England, but I'm not playing with my mates.
Right.
I'm in Australia. Let's make the most of this opportunity and let's do something different. So I moved from football and just got into the gym and tried to become the world's worst bodybuilder.
Right. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question. Was it sort of like through football that you ended up first getting into health and fitness and that sort of thing?
I started getting into training just for girls. I was playing football,
Right.
but I liked attention from the girls. So girls like biceps, just went in the gym. So I'd train
Yeah.
in the gym, made sure I was always fit and healthy, just for girls. And then when I decided to stop playing football, my natural first move was to take up the gym a bit more seriously, and that led me into natural bodybuilding.
Right. And so what was sort of like your first steps into the natural bodybuilding and competing? So did you get yourself like a trainer, and then sort of like when was your first competition and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so when I started at Florida as a trainer, green as, fresh off the street, no idea. first thing I did was find the person that was doing what I wanted to do. And that was Shane Smith down at Subiaco. He was the most successful in-person PT I knew. He was making the most money. He was doing exactly what I wanted to do, working with the clients that I wanted to work with. So I naturally, attached myself to Shane Smith, paid him money to coach me a little bit and mentor me, and learned as much as I could off Shane. And that led me into bodybuilding. I think, yeah, as a young lad, growing up with the fear of being a skinny, bald lad, bodybuilding was always something I was naturally drawn towards, taking myself away from those fears. And that was just the opportunity and the path that led me into bodybuilding a bit more seriously. And when I say natural bodybuilding, there's a whole world of difference between natural bodybuilding and enhanced bodybuilding. So like natural bodybuilding, you wouldn't even relate a natural bodybuilder to what your perception of a bodybuilder is. They're two completely
Right.
different things.
So is that like the sort of unnatural stuff? Is that like more common than what people think?
It is nowadays, yeah. Like when I started 10 years ago, it was people would use anabolics, but not a huge amount. And nowadays it's a lot more widely acceptable and widely used. And it's just like human beings are naturally set up for evolution and progression. And it's just a natural progression. Like we're going to want to always get better as a race, as a species. We're always going to want to get better. So we're always going to be drawn towards those pathways. And whether you think it's relevant or it's a major factor in life, it is. It's in the Olympic Games. It's been in the Olympic Games for years and years and years and years and years. It's only now that we're getting strict on the testing and finding more people doing it, but they were doing it 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And anabolics, like they have this sort of stigma attached around them, like smoking cannabis did. But the reality is, it's only because that's how we're made to perceive them. All of a sudden, cannabis has this label of, medicinal purposes. And now all of a sudden it becomes a positive. And it's exactly the same with anabolics. We all have this stigma attached to them. Oh, anabolics are bad. But if we call it age rejuvenation, everyone goes, oh, it's brilliant. Making people's lives better. Let's call it age rejuvenation. It's fine. It's testosterone from an exogenous source getting injected into human physiology. It's exactly the same. It's just not abused. And it's the same as alcohol, like have a glass of red wine on a Friday night. It's a positive. It enhances the occasion. It enhances the mood, and helps everybody relax. But if you talk about alcohol when someone's drank 15 pints of cider within a 3-hour period on a Saturday night, it's binge drinking, then it becomes a negative. And it's the same with anabolics, like I don't like using them with my clients. I try to steer my clients away from them. We do have bodybuilders and people that aspire to be bodybuilders, so we do use them with a few small amount of clients, but they're not that bad. They're not that bad at all. And used in the right way, they just make you better. They enhance your genetic profile. But at the same time, everything comes at a price, and there is consequences to that as well. Same as drinking alcohol, that you get a bit of a hangover.
Right. Okay. My next question was going to be sort of when you first got into bodybuilding and that sort of thing. So I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and you were kind of saying, when you first did it, you were really, really strict with your training. You sort of like trained a couple of times a day. Your diet was really strict. You didn't go out as much as you probably would have liked to. So looking back, would you take the same approach again, knowing everything you know now? What are sort of like your thoughts around such a strict approach?
Yeah, the first show I did, I was just 100% all the way. Like I didn't know any different. I was just doing exactly what I was told.
Right.
And I didn't want to vary from that because I didn't know any better. I was literally doing what I told. The second show I did, I had an understanding of human physiology. I knew a bit more myself, and I knew that I could still get the same result with a slightly more relaxed approach. So instead of having chicken, broccoli, and rice in meal 3, I knew that if I hit my calories, I could have something different.
Right.
So I had a bit more flexibility and a bit more movement in my second prep. And then by my third prep, I had a lot better understanding of human physiology, nutrition, etc., etc. And it got a bit more relaxed again. Not relaxed as in I was negotiating on my important variables. What I was doing was having more variety, more freedom. I was trying to be more social. I wasn't trying to be such a robot. So I've spoke about the different approaches before, and it depends on the person that you are. So when we're talking about bodybuilding, it's a completely different ballgame to health and fitness and body composition training. We can't compare the two because health and fitness is a completely different thing to bodybuilding. Being a bodybuilder doesn't mean that you're healthy and fit, and it's certainly not a healthy and fit lifestyle. Like, you're restricting yourself, you're isolating yourself. That's not what health and fitness is. So bodybuilding is a completely different beast altogether. The things that apply for bodybuilding don't apply completely and wholly for health and fitness. So the approach that you need to take for bodybuilding will depend on the personality that you are, the personality type that you are. So some people that don't have a lot of self-control, like, they need to become a comp prep robot.
Right.
Do what's in front of you. Don't give yourself the choice, because if you swap a piece of peanut butter for a piece of chocolate, what is that going to trigger for you? Now, knowing what I know now, I'd say to people, like, bodybuilding is a fantastic journey to go on. You'll learn a lot about yourself throughout that process, but you have to make sure you're in the right place before you start. Because if you're the kind of person that does get triggered by certain foods, by going on the bodybuilding journey, you're going to compound the issues that are in front of you right now. You have to prep for the prep. Make sure that you're in a good space before you go through a bodybuilding prep. But the approach that you need to take, whether it's a very rigid and strict approach or a more relaxed approach, it depends on the personality type that you are. They both have their advantages, and they both suit the individual depending on who the individual is. But there's certain things that can't be negotiated. Like, you still need to hit your macronutrients, you still need to hit your micronutrients, you still need to hit your total calories, you still need to hit your total energy output and your training targets. So those things can't be negotiated on, but you can still have a bit more freedom. You don't need to be rigid, but it just depends on the individual, really.
Right. Okay. And you used to do some like gene testing and that sort of thing with your clients, right? So what was this about, like the theories behind this, and sort of how in depth did you go with all of it? And then how did you adapt the training for your clients based on this?
Yes, that's a great question. I'm really glad you really asked that. So when I was working at Florida, I wanted to move into the bodybuilding world. I wanted to have a reputation. I wanted to get success. I wanted to base my clientele in that market. And so I saw this girl training in there, and she had so much potential. She was beautiful, but she just didn't quite have the physique
Right.
that she needed. And I said to her, look, you should seriously think about doing a bikini competition because you would do so well. And she said, yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. And I said, look, if you commit to doing this bodybuilding show, I will give you everything I've got. So I want to see you succeed. It's important for me. I will give you everything I've got. So yeah, cool. We signed up, made the commitment, and every single day I would train with her. I would track her progress, monitor everything. So I gathered all the information that I could about her. I knew exactly how she would respond to every single change by the end.
Right.
And as a result, she won at state titles, she won at nationals, and she almost went to Vegas. She got a pro card in her first year. She almost went to Vegas. Financially, it wasn't viable and it didn't happen, but she probably would have gone on and become a world champion bikini model. And the same happened with another one of my clients at the same time. She went on and she did become a world champion in the fitness model division. So I went from an absolute nobody in the industry to all of a sudden coaching 2 national champions and a world champion in 12 months. So I looked at this and I was like, this is what I want to do for all of my clients. I want to get all of my clients to go from 0 to world champions. So how can I replicate that? How did I achieve this goal in the first place? So I achieved that goal by knowing every single thing about these clients. I knew everything. I knew what time they woke up. I knew how many times they chewed their food. I knew how many times they went to the toilet. I knew how they would respond if I gave them 10 calories extra. I knew how they would respond if I gave them 5 grams of extra carbs on a Sunday. I knew everything. And that's what I wanted to do for everybody, get everybody those kind of results. But it's not possible to spend that amount of time with a large number of people. You can't train with 10 people a day. You can't spend that much time per client. You'd have to charge them 10 grand per client per week. It's not feasible. So I knew that there was something out there that could give us these answers without doing all that work. And I wanted to find that. What makes you different, Tom, to me? What makes me different to Dave? And what makes Dave different to Sarah? There's something that makes us all different. And there's something that determines how you're going to respond to certain stimuluses and how I'm going to respond to certain stimuluses. So I started studying and investigating, and it led me down the path of genetic profiling. This genetic profiling can give us a lot of information about the individual that you were born to be. So we started experimenting with it. We started working with it. We started sending lab samples off to labs all around the world, getting all these results back and doing a lot of study, doing a lot of work, implementing their recommendations, how Tom's going to respond to doing high volume work, how Tom going to respond to doing strength work, how's Tom going to respond to doing 6 days a week compared to 4 days a week, how's Tom going to respond to doing a high fat to low carb diet. We started experimenting, and what we found was there was a lot of truth and a lot of great information to be taken from genetic profiling. But environmental factors rule supreme. So genetically, you might be very tolerant to carbohydrates. You might be born able to consume a lot of carbohydrates. But if you're overweight, obese, and insulin resistant, that has no
It's not
significance
going
at
to
all.
work. Yeah.
It's not going to work. So genetic profiling has a lot of information, a lot of use, a lot of power. But one, environmental factors rule supreme. Two, genetic profiling is like, at the present moment in time, it's like looking through a window to a massive warehouse. We can see what's in there. We can see there's a whole ocean of information in there, but we can't access it. We don't know how to get the best from it right now. So if you've got $200 and you want to find out whether you're going to respond better to high volume, low volume, and get information, then go for it. But if you're on a budget and you don't have that information and you don't want to put the time in afterwards, then it's not really that great. 50 years from now and 100 years from now, I'm excited to see where this goes, because every single person on this planet is different, Tom. And we all know this. But our approach to training and nutrition is the complete opposite of this.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind. And I see like people selling cookie cutter approaches to training and nutrition. And I'm like, and then when I hear people say, yeah, my nutrition's all sorted, I track my macros, I'm like, oh my God, just killed me. 2020, and people think that nutrition is calorie counting. I'm like, this just can't be happening in the world. Like, we should be further ahead than where we are right now. And the information is there. But the trouble is, the social influencers, the people that people follow and listen to, don't know that. They don't care about that. They want to entertain people, build their following. They're not going to talk about genetic profiling and how to individualize things, because they can't make money off that. So they say, yeah, do what I do, and I'm, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And then we end up with health issues and people not getting results, getting frustrated with health and fitness. And it's like, why? Why do you hate health and fitness? Why do you hate dieting? It's because you're taking somebody else's system and trying to apply it to yourself. Of course you're going to fail. Of course, that's never going to work. If I see Tom looks amazing, Tom, you look brilliant, I'm going to copy your nutrition plan, and it doesn't work for me, and then I start begrudging health and fitness, that's not health and fitness's fault. That's because I've took someone else's system and tried to apply it for me. So not just on a genetic front, but also on a lifestyle front as well. Like 5 meals a day, like I'm too busy to have 5 meals a day now, Tom. Like I need 4. If I try to have 5, I'm going to fail. If I try to do strength training, I'm going to get injured. Like we need to individualize our approach. Every single person is so different. And we need to realize that with our training and nutrition. And when we can do that, we're going to get a healthier, better, more energetic, more successful world, happier world. But we need to understand our own individual preferences and our own individual needs and requirements. Right now, the testing isn't there to give us that information, but it will be in a 50 to 100 years time. What we need to do today is trial and error. Get the information we can. Like I've done my DNA test from multiple different sources. I've done food sensitivity panels. I've done blood work. I take all that information and I trial and error. What works for me today won't work for me in 6 months or 12 months time. The person on a cellular level, on a lifestyle level, or on a psychological level, the person I am today isn't the person I'm going to be in 12 months time. So it does need to continuously evolve and adapt as well. And I'm sure that you've come across that within your own training and also with the work that you do with your clients as well. It's like sometimes, you know, like I had a conversation with a client and she was like, if I have a high fat diet, I get cellulite in my legs. And she had an argument with a very well-known coach in Perth. And he said, nah, there's no science to support that. You're wrong. And she came to me and she's like, am I making this up? Am I imagining it? Like, it happens.
Yeah.
But this bloke said there's no science, so I can't be talking right. I'm like, science is an incomplete study. Like, it isn't conclusive. Isn't finalized. Because there isn't any science to say having a high fat diet causes you cellulite. That doesn't mean that it's not true. That might just mean that we haven't done the studies to prove that yet. Like, I've never even seen a study that looked into that. So it's like, even if something makes no sense and it goes against science, if it's right and it's real and it's happening, that is happening for you, and go with it. You know, like there's things like that we see in our clients, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's because everybody's so different and we can't have science to prove that. Like, it's just a never ending study. Life and clients and health is a never ending study. We'll always be learning. We didn't even have a weight management issue until after the Second World War. Like, people don't even know that. People think health and fitness has been around forever. Like, it hasn't. Like,
Yeah.
weight management has been a problem since the Second World War. So all the science around it is so new and so young. Like, human physiology, like we know 5 things. We know 5 things about health and fitness for sure. Sleep affects your the way that you absorb and utilize nutrients. Calories in versus calorie out determine body weight. Micronutrients affect energy, mood, and fight long-term illness. I can't remember the last 2 off the top of my head, but it's literally like, we know, I think it's 4 things actually. I think we know 4 things for definite
Right.
within health, and the rest is still open to debate. Like, that's just crazy, isn't it? When people
Yeah.
say you need to train 6 times a week to lose weight, or you need to sleep 9 hours a day, it's like, mate, you're talking absolute rubbish, because we don't know that. Like, we know 4 things for sure.
Yeah. And so
And the
from
rest
what
is
I can gather is sort of like hormones and nutrition are pretty interconnected as well. So have you ever looked into this sort of thing, like how our nutrition affects our body hormones and that sort of thing?
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's like, I love talking about micronutrients and the importance of micronutrients, because at the moment the whole health and fitness world is just talking about calories.
Yeah.
But micronutrients, I published a study, or I didn't publish a study, sorry, I posted a study that I was reading, and it said people that had adequate micronutrient content within their diet had a 70% higher success rate of long-term weight management than people that just focused on macros.
Right.
People that just focused on calories in, calories out, lost weight, but they couldn't sustain it, and they regained that weight. People that had adequate micronutrients managed to keep the weight off, 70% higher success rate. But yes, so nutrients, environmental factors, sleep, stress, psychological factors, everything within health and fitness is interconnected and interrelated. It's interrelated to a level that we don't even understand. We know that psychology and gut health are connected. We know that there's a strong connection between your mental health and your gut health. If one is out, it affects the other. To what extent, we're not quite sure yet. We don't quite understand how they interact with each other. But we know if you're stressed, you have anxiety, it plays a role on your gut health. And we know that if your gut health is out, it plays a role on your cognitive function as well. And it's the same with nutrients that come in and out as well. There's pro-inflammatory foods. There's foods that you're sensitive to that I'm not sensitive to. They will have a hormonal reaction and response. How much sleep you get, how well you process stress. All of this has a massive role on our hormonal balance and our hormonal health. The micronutrients that we consume will affect our immune system. Our gut health will affect our testosterone production. Our cognitive function will affect our gut health, where our immune system is built. It's all interrelated. And something so simple like having a vitamin B deficiency can affect the function of your liver. And what does your liver do? Detoxifies estrogens. So if somebody's really struggling with losing fat off their legs, normally they'll turn to DIM or estrogen blockers. But it could just be the fact that they have a suboptimal functioning type 2 liver clearance.
Right.
So people might go deep enough and they'll go, I'll just take a liver detox protocol. But if you go even deeper again, B vitamin 12 affects liver function. So fat retention in the legs, if you trace it all the way back through, can be something as simple as a vitamin B12 deficiency. And once we correct that deficiency, the liver starts functioning better. You start detoxifying estrogens better. You start losing weight. Combined with a calorie deficit, you can start losing or leaning out the fat retention in legs.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty interesting. So if you had to sort of break it down, what would you say are the most important aspects of nutrition?
So when we say the word nutrition, I really want to everyone to think beyond just calories and protein and carbs and fats. I want the word nutrition to be considered as everything wellness, everything that goes into the body.
Right.
I think that's how we can sort of categorize nutrition. What is nutrition? Anything that goes in. And I think that's also could be considered almost to some point on a psychological level as well, what you allow into your body. I think we can almost classify the whole thing as nutrition. The most important thing for me would be sleep and micronutrients, because I think if your sleep and micronutrients are adequate, then dieting becomes a whole lot easier. I think if we focus first on calories and we don't have our sleep and micronutrients calculated correctly, it makes the process harder. So we can go into a calorie deficit, but if we're in an unhealthy state, we know the state of the organism will affect the rate at which those calories take effect. So I go slightly different around nutrition, and I will start with health first before we look at calories. And I know that sounds a little bit contradicting, and I'll probably get witch hunted for saying that. But I think when we talk about weight management, if we look at getting our clients in a good state of health first, then the calorie deficit or the calories in, calorie out equation becomes a lot more effective. So I would always go with sleep and micronutrients first. Let's get good habits, routines, and adequate sleep and micronutrients. Then we can apply calorie deficit, and results are going to come a whole lot quicker. So for example, we know that a calorie deficit achieves fat loss or weight loss. And we know that Usain Bolt is the fastest man in the world. They're scientifically proven, cannot be denied. If Usain Bolt runs a race and he finishes 8th, we know that he has an injury. So if we keep saying to Usain Bolt, run faster, it's not going to make him win that race because there's an issue. And it's the same with a calorie deficit. If we apply calorie deficit to a client and they don't lose weight, we know that there's a problem. And if we keep applying a calorie deficit to that client, it's not going to fix the problem. They're not just going to magically lose weight. And this is what this is what I used to do as a young coach. I know that a calorie deficit is going to achieve fat loss. I'm going to give you a calorie deficit. If it doesn't work, I'll give you more of a calorie deficit. Usain Bolt, run faster.
Yeah.
Mate, stop trying to run faster. There's a problem. Let's take Usain Bolt out of the race. Let's identify what his injury is. Let's rehabilitate his injury and then rerun the race. And that's what we should do with our clients. Let's make sure they're in a really good state of health before we even put them into a race. Because if we get them to run and they're injured, it can make the injury worse. I tried saying this in a public Facebook group, and I got absolutely slated for this. But it's like people read too much textbook and they don't work with enough people. They're not open-minded enough. It's not working. You're cheating on your diet. They must not be following the diet plan. But it's exactly the same principle as making Usain Bolt run a race with an injury. So get your sleep and micronutrients right first. Get to a good standard of health and then apply a calorie deficit. because you wouldn't want to push the world's fastest man into a race unless you knew that he was fully fit.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And then sort of getting on to like the sleep side of things as well. I've heard you talk about not only sleep, but stress control and digestion and those sort of things as well. So in terms of these, what sort of like principles and practices do you apply or recommend to your clients to optimize these?
So we would speak to people and sort of establish where they're at, where their sleep, with their stress, with their digestion, and then we just start working towards optimizing these. Now they are all tightly linked, like we said earlier. If you are stressed, it's going to affect your gut health. If your gut health's bad, it's going to affect your immune system, etc., etc. And what I say to people is whether you realize it or not, you are in a state of elevated stress. If you live in the Western world in 2020, you are in a state of elevated stress. Human physiology designed the stress defense mechanism to keep us alive. So in the prehistoric days, the caveman days, we would come face to face with a saber-toothed tiger, and that stress defense mechanism would send blood to the limbs, dilate our pupils, get us to switch on, get adrenaline pumping so that we could respond, move, and stay alive. And people that didn't have that stress defense mechanism got wiped out. They got eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. So that defense mechanism is designed to be activated once or twice a week. We don't come into a life-threatening situation every 10 seconds. But that's where we're at now in modern day society. As society has evolved, human physiology hasn't been able to keep up. And now we're activating that stress defense mechanism. Oh, can we swear on this?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm stuck at traffic lights. I'm going to be late for work. The kids are in the back screaming, I got to pay the water bill. Oh my God, I've got to put some fuel in my tank as well. Oh, and my husband's giving me an earache. You've just activated that stress defense mechanism 10 times in 10 seconds. Now, even though it's not a life-threatening situation, your subconscious mind doesn't recognize it as that. It still creates the same chemical pathway. So whether you think it or not, you're in a state of elevated stress. And we can't avoid stress. It's part of being successful. And the people that want to look better, feel better, they're normally people that want to be successful in life. So they're pushing forward in their careers, in their life, in their relationships. They want to be successful. They're going to have to be exposed to stress. It's about managing stress. How many parasympathetic nervous system windows can we create in the day? How much time can we spend in our parasympathetic nervous system? So stress, you've probably heard fight and flight. So stress, fight, we call that the sympathetic nervous system. Rest and digest, we call this the parasympathetic nervous system. They send different chemical pathways around the body. So when we're stressed, we have adrenaline going around the body. It's hard to cortisol. It's hard to break down body fat and build muscle. When we're relaxed, we have different chemical pathways that go around the body. Melatonin, serotonin. This is where we can adjust and adapt to the stimulus that we've created through our training, and where we can get fat to reduce or oxidize and muscle growth to occur. So we want to make sure that we're just spending time, we're taking time out of every day to be in that parasympathetic nervous system. Maybe if it's 5 minutes at the start of the day, an hour, if possible, at the end of the day, possibly going for a walk on your lunch break, another 30 minutes. Let's just spend as much time as we can in that parasympathetic nervous system so we can give our body the best chance it possibly can to have good immune function, good cognitive function, good cellular health, good fat oxidation, muscle protein synthesis, all these good anabolic hormones and responses. We need to just encourage those the best way that we can through lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like lifestyle is a huge part of health and fitness. We initially look at training and nutrition. And if you jump into training and nutrition too early, it can be massively detrimental. If you're in a state of stress, you don't have time, you've got cortisol pumping through your body, you've got injuries, and then you try to go into the gym, you're just compounding the issue. You try to diet, miss all your favorite foods, start counting calories, you're compounding down on the issue. So let's take some time out. Let's get our stress right. Let's get our sleep right. Let's just get some good quality, wholesome, locally sourced, organic, seasonal foods into your body without even going to the gym, without even counting calories, because that's going to have a massive impact on you. not for you, Tom, because you're already an athlete, but for someone that's stressing and struggling with health and weight management, let's get lifestyle sorted first, and then
Right.
start bringing training and nutrition in. It's a different approach for different people. Like if you're an athlete, you're young and you're fit and you're full of energy, then yeah, sweet, get in that gym and start getting yourself into a calorie deficit. But for the average person that's working a 9-to-5 job, trying to bring up 2 kids and run a house, let's get lifestyle sorted first.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to coaching your clients and training them for competitions and that sort of thing, this is something I'm quite intrigued about because I think it's something I'd like to do in the future at some point. But for this, how do you structure their training in terms of like frequency, splits, intensity, and that sort of thing? And how does all of this change sort of like as you like progress towards the competition date?
So I break comp prep down to 4 phases. First phase is like the pre-prep or prepping for the prep. We have to make sure that the client's in a position where they can start dieting, where they
Right.
can start prepping. We need to make sure that they're on a physiological and a psychological level. People coming in, a lot of people want to do prep or they want to do a comp because they want the motivation to stay on track and lose weight. They want the bright lights, they want the sparkly bikini, but they're not in a position to deal with missing out on their favorite foods, not in a position to deal with missing social occasions. They don't have the structure in their life to start with. So we have to make sure that they're in a good starting position with their lifestyle and their physiology. So what we want to do with their physiology is get them to have metabolic adaptation to a higher amount of calories. So
Right.
if you think you start prepping on 1400 calories, you won't even make it to stage. You need to start your dieting phase from 2200. So we get you to base calories, and then we creep your calories slightly higher than base and get metabolic adaptation, get your body used to that amount of calories without gaining weight. Then we've built a nice platform from which we can start dieting. So phase 1, prep the prep. Phase 2, get the most from doing the least.
Right.
So we don't want to chuck in cardio, deficits, keto. We don't want to be chucking in, all of this stuff early on, because then we're restricted to how much we can use later on. So we want to make sure that the client's losing weight from doing the least amount of work, 4 sessions a week, and maybe coming down to base calories. Phase 2, this is where we start intensifying the work that we do. We should have a good understanding about the individual here. We should know what foods they respond well to. We should know what training stimulus they respond well to. We should know how much sleep they require, how they respond to the way we talk to them, the way that we interact with them. We should understand how they're going to feel about a cheat meal, cheat weekend, time, social occasions. And here, then we can start intensifying it. Now we start turning the cogs a little bit. Now, just before I go into phase 4, the last phase, I've worked with multiple clients for multiple years, and something that works for a client in year 1 might not necessarily work for that client in year 2. I had a client that was a state champion, went to nationals. We had it all perfect. The second year, the year after, we had a 6-week period where no weight loss occurred. I tried everything. I chucked everything at her, and she had lost no weight for 6 weeks. We took pumpkin out of her diet, and she lost 800 grams in 2 days.
Wow.
So she had developed a food sensitivity over a 12-month period, and she never had that in year 1. Pumpkin was in her diet in year 1. We did everything the same. She had developed a sensitivity, and we lost 6 weeks of that prep. So even if you do all your prep work right in phase 1, things can still change throughout the prep. So phase 3, we start turning it up. We start putting more intensification in, take a diet break, need be. I take diet breaks every 4 weeks. So diet hard, break. Diet hard, take a break every 4 weeks. So here we turn it up, more training, more of a calorie deficit, regular diet breaks. And then phase 4, this is where all the work should be done. And now we're just priming the athlete for stage. So we don't really want to be chasing results in the last couple of weeks. We just want to be priming them, getting them ready, posing, tanning, hair, makeup, nails, bikini, get all of that stuff done. just let them focus on that. We don't want them to be focusing on chasing results. We should have done all that work by now. In phase 3, the intensification phase, where they're almost ready. Phase 4 is where we start backing things off a little bit, because you don't get judged on your hard work, you get judged on how well you present. And it's about refining that in the last phase. You don't want to be pushing for results. You just create more cortisol, more stress, more muscle fiber breakdown. You want to be backing it all off in that last phase.
Right. And
I think people miss phase 1. That's the point that most people miss.
yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And are there any sort of like key principles that you sort of keep the same across the board with all your clients, or is it all sort of change up based on the person, a bit more specific, like you've been saying?
Yeah, we try to personalize it as much as possible. We get that information in phase 1, but the principles that I would apply that would be across the board would be weekly changes. Human physiology is never static and it's never linear. So your approach should never be static or linear either.
Right.
So when I first started prepping people, I'd give them a diet, and then when their results started to slow down or stop, then I'd make a change. Okay, we need to drop. And they might be on like whatever, 1800 calories for 2 weeks. Okay, they've stopped. Now we need to drop them down again. Now they're on 1700 for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks maybe before their weight loss stops. Now we need to make a change again. So the principles that I apply, we're going to hit plateaus, 100%. That's going to happen. So what we want to do is minimize it. So weekly changes. So we go 2000 calories week 1, 1900 week 2, 1800, 1700, 2000, diet break.
Right.
19, 18, 17, diet break. That way we can avoid plateaus because we're being proactive with our nutritional strategy, and diet breaks make it easier and they avoid a downregulated metabolism. By going consistently on a linear down trajectory, we're going to end up in a bad spot. But by taking regular diet breaks, we can achieve muscle protein synthesis, muscle growth. We can replenish glycogen, replenish micronutrients. We can relax and refresh the client so they're ready for the next dieting phase. And it also allows us to go harder with our dieting earlier, because you'd never want to be in like a 30% deficit in week 4 of your prep if you were taking a downward trajectory straight through. So we can go harder earlier with the regular diet breaks. So that would be something that would be a staple. I think that's probably the only staple. Other than that, everything else would be individualized. We avoid cardio. Try to give the client more resistance work before we give them more cardio, depending on their recovery profile.
Yeah.
If they take more weights, we'll give them more weights. And as we increase their stimulus, or as we increase their output, we want to make sure that we're increasing their recovery profile to match, because otherwise we're just digging them into a fatigue debt. Giving you more work to do and less food doesn't mean we're going to get you more results. If there's more stimulus, there has to be more adaptation. Stimulus does not equal adaptation, which people think. Stimulus then has to go through the general adaptation curve, then results in adaptation. And people don't realize this. The more stimulus they create requires a bigger adaptation process. And if this adaptation process is broken or inferior, like broken sleep, too much stress, not enough recovery days, then we don't end up with more adaptation, because it all gets lost in the adaptation process. The adaptation process has to match the stimulus. More stimulus, more recovery, then you get more adaptation.
Yeah, no, that all makes perfect sense as well. And now getting into like the business side of things, like what we were sort of speaking on before the show, you do most of your stuff online now. So in your opinion, what are the most important aspects of building a successful business online?
The online world is a crazy world. Like, it's a crazy world, but the results are there if you want them. So when I first started online coaching, I was stood there like, hey guys, here I am, I'm a great coach. I'm a better coach now than when I was in person. Come and employ me. And it was like tumbleweed. And I was like, I don't get it. Why are these Instagram influencers becoming more successful than me? They're not as good a coaches as me. I've been to their seminars. I've paid for their courses. That they don't know as much as me. Why are people not paying me to be coached by me. And I lost one of my clients to a social media influencer, and that influencer was charging her 3 times more than I was.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, I don't get it. I'm a better coach than her. I'm going to get you better results. I'm going to care for you more. But you're going to her and paying her 3 times more. Why is that? And I think if you can answer that question, then you'll be successful as an online coach. And if you can't answer that question, then you've got no chance. When you work in a gym, people that go to that gym will employ you because you have a competitive advantage over every other coach in the world. You are in the gym that they choose to train in. You offer something that I can't. But when you enter the online world, you're competing against Dan Garner, the Australian strength coach, Eugene Teo. You're competing against multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. So why should somebody choose to coach with you over somebody else? And if you can answer that question, you'll be successful. If you can't answer that question, don't even start, because you're going to stand there online watching tumbleweed go by. And it is a really fucking hard lesson to learn. I literally cut my income in half when I went online, and it took me a year before I could increase that off base. I went from a waiting list as an in-person coach, exhausted from work, to instantly looking for clients, searching for clients, just having enough money to pay the bills. It took me 12 months to figure that out. So my advice to anybody that's thinking about going online, what is the answer to this question? Why should a potential client train with you over anybody else? If you can answer that, then you'll be fine. That gives you the answer.
Interesting. Okay, so before I get on to my last question, where can people find you online?
Instagram, Stephen.j.Arnold. Stephen's STEPHEN. My website is teambodyproof.com.au, and my Facebook is just Stephen Arnold.
Awesome. I'll put a link to those in the show notes as well. So lastly, SOTA stands for state of the art. And I asked you to be a guest on the show today because I believe you are a person that strives to be state of the art and achieve a life above the norm. So in your opinion, what does it mean to be state of the art, and why is this important?
State of the art for me would literally be to be open-minded with your coaching approach, because I think we're all taught to follow textbooks, to follow the leaders. And I think that is what's holding us all back. I think if we can all understand that we need to be open-minded and realize that everyone is individual, we're setting yourself up to be at the top of your field and to be really leading the health and fitness industry into the future.
Awesome. I love that answer. All right. Well, Stephen, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Brilliant, Tom. It was an absolute pleasure. That was really, really well structured.